Have you ever heard of like a mystical, mythical creature, like a bogeyman? Now, they're all nonsense, aren't they? You get, as you get older, you realise it's not true, is it? There's no such thing as ghosts. But there was one bogeyman that stuck around for a long time. Even I heard of this when I was a kid. And they used to call the bogeyman Purple Aki. Purple Aki was this giant man, and his skin was that dark that he almost looked purple, and that's where the name come from. And he used to hide in the woods, and if you were walking around, he'd come out the woods and grab you and want to play with your muscles. It's a bit weird, that, isn't it? But everyone knew about this. Everybody in the 80s and the 90s, and even to this day, the Purple Aki bogeyman. Now, what's happened today, unfortunately, he's died. And in this video, you're going to find out exactly who this real life bogeyman was, starting right now.
Analyzing the news.
Hi friends, today I want to clear up the story of the famous figure you might have heard of. It is the one and only Purple Aki. Now, unfortunately, Purple Aki actually died today, and in this video we're going to find out a little bit about him and what actually happened when he died. I'll actually tell you who he really was, where the myth came from, and what happened to him. So let's start with his real name. His real name was, now this is hard to pronounce, it was Akinwale Oluwafolajimi Oluwatope. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'll put the name on there, but it's a very complex word, especially when you've got dyslexic like me. Either way, this was a big name, right? And people used to call them the Purple Aki. So he was born on the 15th of July 1961 in Crumpsall in Lancashire, up north England. Later he became famous, or perhaps infamous, and he was known as Purple Aki. Why that name? People say it came from the idea that he was so black, his skin looked purple, and his nickname had become Purple Aki. Now obviously that's got a racist overtones towards it, but I'm only telling you this is what happened. So let me give you an example, a scenario. Imagine you're a teenager in the northwest of England, in Liverpool or Manchester, back in the 1990s. You're playing football, or you're at a school gym, or you're with your mates, and then suddenly someone whispers in your ear, "Watch out, Purple Aki might catch you." I know I heard that all the time when I was a kid, and so did thousands of people around the northwest of England as well. Everyone knew about Purple Aki. Even now, 20, 30 years on, people still talk about Purple Aki. He's going to get you, he's going to feel your muscles. That's what they used to say. So let's get a little bit more deeper into this and find out exactly what it was all about. Again, he was an urban legend. People used to talk about him, but he moved from being an urban legend, like a ghost, to a real person, into a kind of scary legend that kids used to feel uneasy about, and I mean terrified. And in this video, you're going to find out even more about why they had this sense of insecurity about this mythical creature called Purple Aki, and he was going to get you if you went out. So what did he actually do to get this reputation? Well, Aki was known for approaching young muscular men, usually children, with or without their permission, and asking to feel their muscles or have them do squats for him. This isn't a myth, this is a fact. There was lots of reports to the police by the parents that this man, which was very dark, and he was huge. He said he was well over 6 foot. People exaggerate, so he was 10 foot. I don't know exactly how big he was, but he was big, and he used to just approach people, especially young people, and ask them to do squats. Very disturbing. He would then often offer exercise advice, but his behaviour was seen as obsessive and invasive, not necessarily friendly. It was like he'd force himself to tell you what to do. This is why people got frightened of him. So picture this, a young rugby player walking to training, and then a tall muscular stranger comes up and says, "Can I feel your biceps?" The player gets nervous. That's how people describe Aki. someone who made others feel unsafe by asking embarrassing, awkward and unwanted things. Then in 1986 a tragedy happened. There was a 16-year-old boy called Gary Kelly who was allegedly being followed by Aki. In a panic, Gary ran away, went onto the platform, a train platform, then jumped onto the railway tracks, and unfortunately he touched a live rail and he was electrocuted and died. Aki then was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and an accident instead of an assault. Then the sentence that happened was 30 months. So he did serve time, he did go to prison for that. But the conviction was then later overturned on appeal because judges said standing on the platform wasn't a crime itself. Aki was then released and even awarded £35,000 in compensation, in part because the case had no radical overtones to it. In other words, there was a death and the boy was running from Per Palaki, but then the defence of Per Palaki says, well, I didn't kill him. Per Palaki was sentenced for it. But again, I'm not a judge, I don't know. This is what the courts said. So then in the 2000s, Aki continued to face legal trouble because in 2003, he was jailed for 6 years for harassment and witness intimidation after he repeatedly had complaints against him about his behaviour. So a lot of people were concerned about him. This isn't trying to just bully someone. He was doing things, and obviously he did go to prison and court several times, and there's a lot of allegations, eyewitnesses saying this guy's doing something that's unacceptable, and obviously that's why he had to serve time and go to court to get arrested and all that. So it was a real thing. So think of this, a court set a rule banning him from touching anyone's muscles, from asking strangers to do squats, and from hanging out near schools, because he used to do things like that and hang around gyms or towns with rugby clubs. This is where he would roam around. Now the legends say he used to walk in woods, but I don't know about that, but he did hang around schools and gyms. The rule was called a sexual offence prevention order, or an SOPO, but he broke it again and again. So even though he was told not to do it, he kept on going to the schools, the gyms, the rugby clubs, and hanging about outside waiting for people so he could approach them and then ask them if he could feel their muscles. Sounds very bizarre, doesn't it? And for a child it'd be terrifying, even for anyone, because this guy was huge. So because of those breaches, he got more prison time, like 15 months sentence back in 2007, and in 2010 he was jailed for 2.5 years for touching a 16-year-old's muscles. The judge even called him a sexual predator. So he'd approach people and ask them, and if they said no, he would just grab them anyway. You've got to understand that, or he wouldn't have got sent to prison. But then in 2016, psychologists reviewed the case and they found that his obsession probably wasn't sexual in nature. So the prevention order was lifted. So in their eyes, they thought, no, he's not doing it for a sexual thing. He's just got an obsession with muscles. And he's not a threat in a sexual way, if that makes sense. So again, that's why psychologists, when they get involved, they analyze his behavior and his psyche, and they come up with the idea or the suggestion that it was non-sexual, so they couldn't throw that sentence at him, you see. Okay, so then there was more stories about him. At one point he complained that the BBC documentary about him was racist, because they made a BBC documentary, which is a big show in England, very big show, well, big channel should I say, and he wasn't happy about it. He said it treated him unfairly, and another example of how the myth overshadowed the man, because the myth is always bigger than the man, isn't it? Then in 2022, he successfully sued some police officers for malicious prosecution and had another big payout. Then the sad final chapter was on August the 26th, which is today, 2025, age 64. Akinwale, if I can pronounce it, Arobic. I can say the word, but I can never pronounce it. But unfortunately, he passed away. His body was found in his flat in Toxteth, Liverpool, and the police say that the death was not suspicious at all. Okay, so what does this all mean? He wasn't some mythical monster or bubbling boogeyman, but even though I thought it was when I was a kid. But as you get older, you realise he wasn't. He was a real person with disturbing behaviour. His action caused fear, trauma, and even tragic death. But there was also a lot of controversy about how the law treated him and whether race played a role. Calling someone Purple-Aki because he was that dark, his skin, people said he looked purple. That alone is quite racist, isn't it? It's not a nice thing to say. But this was 20 odd years ago, and the world was a lot different then. But again, it's not very nice, is it? It's downright bloody disgusting calling someone that. But again, the name stuck. So basically, that's the full story. Straight, clear and real. So let me know if you'd like me to go through this a little bit deeper with you, because there's a lot more to the story, and I'm sure the truth's going to come out now, because a lot of people asked if they could interview him. Lots of big podcasters, but he wouldn't do it. But his name has been circulating, especially around Liverpool, for at least the last 20 years. So he was the real life bogeyman to a lot of children, and unfortunately today he passed away. So let me know what you think. Did you hear about Purple-Aki? Did you hear all these horror stories about him? Let me know in the comments. But until next time, guys, I'll see you later.